In the following video, notice how a sister follows up on interest shown.
Ami left a great question for her next visit. Return visit, Mrs. Iwata. I told her I'd visit this morning. I just didn't schedule the time. I could at least stop by on the way back. Missed her again. If I didn't try something different, I was just going to keep missing her. First, I wanted her to know I hadn't forgotten her. Dear Mrs. Iwata, I hope you're doing well. I promise to come by early next week. By the way, your flowers are so beautiful. Then I made a plan for my service day. Following through is just too important to leave to chance.
As you plan your share in the ministry, follow the good example of the sister in the video and schedule time to make regular return visits. Doing so is just as important as other aspects of our ministry. These regular visits with interested people are vital links in the chain leading to a Bible study.
Fresh from patrolling the Bethel laundry department to check for immoral use of bed linen, we've been watching governing body helper Gary Breaux taking us through the symposium item, Be Ready to Share the Good News of Peace. Follow up on interest. Yes, Jehovah's Witnesses here being reminded to badger people who show even the slightest interest by leaving them notes. Leave them notes, complimenting them on the state of their property, because that's not creepy at all. And by doing this sort of thing, Jehovah's Witnesses are being fastidious when it comes to following through.
Following through is just too important to leave to chance.
Yes, as we all know, following through requires enormous effort. It can be a messy and embarrassing business, but if nothing else, it brings enormous relief. Seriously, what we're seeing here is yet more evidence of how fake, how codified, how forced the entire approach to preaching is. Mrs. Iwata probably assumes that she's being called on organically because these people like her and they genuinely value her opinion and they genuinely admire her flowers. But what's really happening is that Mrs. Iwata is being put through a process. She's being flattered about her flowers. She's being flattered with the notion that her opinions mean something, with the ulterior motive of converting Mrs. Iwata to a Jehovah's Witness.
Because of the busy lives that people have today, it may be hard to find the person at home again, even if you set an appointment. So it's a good idea to try and obtain his contact information, maybe his phone number. Some publishers anticipate this challenge and simply ask, "Do you text?" By simply texting, you may be able to keep in touch and cultivate the interest further. And if you can't get his contact information, and the person isn't home at the agreed-upon time, you might leave a brief note, just as the sister did in the video. And this will assure the householder that you haven't forgotten them. The disciple-making work requires patience and persistence.
Well, thank you, Gary Breaux, for again just putting it out there. I don't need to make the arguments against this organization. You're just doing it for me. You're just saying, just unashamedly, that Jehovah's Witnesses should be getting people's personal information, should be hoarding their names and phone numbers, and in the absence of getting their contact information, should be leaving notes to surreptitiously start a relationship that might lead to them getting their contact information so that they can pursue a Bible study and recruit someone into the group. I keep having to say this in my rebuttals, but if you've never been one of Jehovah's Witnesses, I hope you're taking notes here. This is how they do things. In my day, when I was a Jehovah's Witness, what we used to do is keep detailed notes on the people we spoke to. We wouldn't do it in front of them because we knew full well that that would creep them out. So instead, we'd scurry around the corner, maybe behind a tree or something, or maybe we'd retreat to our car and sit in the car. And after having this conversation, we would write down on a notepad as much information as we could remember about them. If they'd mentioned what their job was, we would put their job. If they'd mentioned the names of their kids, we would write the names of their kids. The name of their dog. Anything we could remember, we'd put in the notes. And we would keep these records without their permission. Interestingly, as some of you know, I recently embarked on a study with members of the LDS Church with Mormons. Thumbnail here to the first in the series, If Tibor is Gracious. And interestingly, when I first started interacting with them, they sent me a Facebook message with a document and asked for my permission to keep my contact details so that they could maintain a study with me. Here is said document so that you can see for yourself that I'm not making this up. This is I'm assuming, GDPR compliant document. So the Mormons, say what you will about them, and I have a lot to say in my series about their theology and their teachings. Say what you will about them, but at least they get people's privacy and contact details right, in my experience. I don't know whether this is everyone's experience when dealing with LDS church members, but in my experience, they did things properly, and they asked for my consent to keep my contact information. Where is that here? Where is Gary Breaux saying to Jehovah's Witnesses, please make sure they fill out a GDPR compliant form? They do not care. They just don't care, Jehovah's Witnesses. And if you're watching this as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, you need to ask yourself the question, how is it that Jehovah's organization can be behind false religion or Babylon the Great, groups like the Mormons, when it comes to their obligations and commitments under Caesar's law to be responsible in how they collect data?